This was one of the most important from all of those 3 episodes that we created at this point.
It becomes hard to quantify the actual value of something that completely differentiates a brand.
A lot of companies talk about this great idea, but they don't have data that can back this up.
Does this mean that we shouldn't be activating on these platform experiences? Of course not. We should lean into them and try to use them to their maximum potential. Hey everyone, I'm Phillip Loamax, Executive Vice President of MediaScience, and today Owi and I are going to talk about a new framework for understanding B2B sales and marketing, which is the perception spectrum. During this white paper that I wrote with IAB, I identified a new framework that can be applied to all B2B transactions and relationships called the perception spectrum. And basically the framework outlines that there are multiple parties involved in a transaction across any line of business. Applied to gaming, we identified that there were 5 key pillars associated with stopping gaming or allowing gaming or opening up gaming to achieve its full market potential. So the perception spectrum outlines a framework in which we can map out where particular parties sit within a spectrum. So what we found in this research is that there were 5 key pillars that have specific perceptions from these different parties. And in fact, what we found in the research is that rather than these being authentic and real objections, these are actually misperceptions. So by identifying where each of these parties sit within the perception spectrum, we can identify whether or not we need to pay more attention to these critical issues within this B2B value transfer. So the first pillar that we discovered was a misperception around cost and value. The second key pillar that we found a misperception around was around quality activation at scale. The third misperception that we discovered was around delivering on full funnel objective. The fourth was around measurement. And the fifth misperception was around brand safety and receptivity. So let's talk about the first one, cost and value. So of course, in any company, the seller on the sell side thinks that their product is worth a lot of money, that they're transferring a tremendous amount of value over to the client. And the client on the buy side of this equation is always trying to perceive what value or what type of return on investment they can achieve from interfacing with the seller and acquiring a product. So Owi, I want to kick it over to you. Based off of your experience in marketing and as a, marketing and creative studio, tell me a little bit about this topic around cost and value as you talk to your clients.
So when it comes to the cost and value, I've noticed that a lot of companies similar to ours usually just talk about this great idea, this, oh my gosh, this is going to cost that much money, but so many people are going to watch this, but they don't have data that can back this up. Since the time I started working on in-game advertising and immersive marketing activations, we've noticed that the data is the most important thing that we can show to the client. I know some of those things can be very costly, especially when it comes to this huge activation and building this, because as we know, gaming industry and people who build games usually cost a lot of money and the labor is high. But when it comes to presenting the value to the client, we always have some information based on the other projects that we've done or projects that we saw has been done before. So for example, when something costs X amount of money, we want to show to our clients that, hey, this costs this much money. I know it sounds a lot, but that's the value that you can get from this in a long term and in short term. So I understand that some of the clients have problems with understanding this, but the studios, the agencies, and the production companies have to be very thorough when it comes to providing this data and showing this to the client that, hey, this is really valuable for you and for your brand. And I've noticed there are so many people who are just like, oh yeah, this is going to cost X and let's do nothing about this. I'm just going to do this and I don't care. But the real agencies or the real studios that are working on this stuff, they are really focused on how valuable it is really for the client and if this is even worth for the client to do an activation like that. Because let's be real, not every marketing activation or not every production thing is valuable for every client. Yeah. So in general, I think that every company can get some value from immersive experiences and metaverses. I think it is a thing right now, and it is going to be a thing in the future. And I'm already working on presenting that every company should be in metaverse and will get value from the metaverse. But some of the services that studios and agencies are providing are not valuable. For example, some clients want to spend X amount of money on creating this immersive experience in different forms of in-game advertising, but they don't know what the client should take. And when they think that, oh, this is going to be perfect for you, you have to do this, there's no other way.
It sounds like we're at this interesting intersection, right? In which a company like yours is interfacing with a client, and there's a few different value propositions that are part of this equation. So the first value proposition is differentiation within the marketplace. Creating immersive experiences within the metaverse is very different than advertising through traditional methods. Secondly, this is in some ways, and in all advertising, part of this conversation is about counteracting the commoditization of art and of tailoring experiences for audiences, and this balancing act that takes place between creating entertainment for audiences that also provides the vehicle for brands and advertisers to create lasting memories, as we talked about previously. When you come to the table and you bring data or key insights or stats that indicate some type of success, what we found in the marketplace was that metaverse activations in particular rely on other third-party, residual benefits such as social media engagement or, various news articles, etc., to try to support what they're trying to communicate to the brand that they're interfacing with. It becomes hard to quantify the actual value of something that may create a memory with audiences that completely differentiates a brand. And you're not the only one struggling with communicating this value proposition, because now it comes down to, am I using value-based pricing in terms of the full market opportunity that you have? If you're going to walk away with, something that makes you X million amount of dollars, what should our company's take be? Versus operations-based pricing, which is, this is how many hours it's going to take for me to build this. This is how many hours of ideation and creativity work that we're going to put into it, et cetera, right? And a lot of different companies struggle with this ability to communicate the value of all of the different service offerings that they have. So you're not alone.
So that is not a problem that I am actually facing, because there's a difference between being a production company that sells just a creation of something. We know how many hours it's going to take this and how many hours it's going to take that. But we have an approach when it comes to this stuff with, hey, this is the whole strategy. This is not just an activation that you can build. You can't build an activation and expect so many great results here. You can a little bit. Of course, some results are going to be great from an activation that is just created for in-game or metaverse or any type of immersive advertising. But we have an approach that, this is way more than just a creation of an immersive experience that is going to create this lasting memory, that what you were talking about. So for example, when we have a conversation with a client and we have this conversation about the value, how much something it costs, how much did ROI are they going to get, what's the long-term engagement, what's the short-term engagement, we always talk about the fact that there's way more to do than just one experience. I'm going to give you a perfect example here. There's this one company that created their metaverse experience that was only bespoke for them, and it didn't look great. The agency created this immersive experience strategy, or just created this immersive experience because I didn't see much strategy there. They presented this for X amount of cost. And the client was super excited because everyone was talking about this, everyone's talking about right now about Roblox, Fortnite, Minecraft, and all of those other platforms. But they didn't know that the agency didn't create anything else besides that. Of course, this agency bought a couple of media, like articles or social media contents, but this was nothing when it comes to the final delivery, because the client spent a lot of money on just creation of the metaverse or this immersive experience, but they didn't get any value because no one came in there. And that's the problematic thing. And that's why when it comes to the value proposition for the clients, we have to really focus on the client, not only about ourselves and about what we can do, because there's way more than just a creation of something. You have to know how to promote it, where to promote it, and how to do it in a way that is going to be valuable for the brand and for their customers. Because we as a studio or as a production company or as an agency, we need to think about what's good for our clients, but we have to also think what's good for their clients and for their customers and for the people who are going to re-engage with that.
I think that's a perfect segment into the next misperception that we discovered in this research: quality activation at scale. So the gaming industry is, set across not only multiple devices, mobile, PC, console-based, via television, etc. But now we're seeing even further fragmentation in which companies like Samsung have created their own gaming hub that lives on the television screen itself, and you're going to be able to access that. There's also other, components of the landscape, such as platforms like Twitch that integrate, live streaming component into, this value equation. So quality activation at scale, I think there's some interesting components here that make it a little bit harder for marketers to perceive as optimized when they compare this to platforms like, traditional television or CTV streaming platforms or even social media platforms. And, the thing here is the gaming landscape is somewhat fragmented, right? You may achieve something like 100,000 daily active users in one platform, whereas you might achieve 20,000 in a different platform, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when you basically accumulate portfolios of IP across gaming on a platform like mobile, as an example, you may be able to achieve the same type of, reach as other digital experiences. But the tricky part here is when you compare that to something like television, you have, television events like live sports or even the news, in which you can achieve the type of scale that we're looking for in terms of reach, right? With the same context experience. Whereas with gaming, there are multiple gaming types and play types, right? And when you go head to head with one experience versus, a large tentpole event on one of those other platforms that I mentioned, you simply won't be able to achieve that type of reach. So there are technical complexities to this in terms of being able to reach that scale that we're talking about. And I think that brands and, marketers are still trying to grapple with that. And, there's a level of trust here in terms of making sure that, those advertisements were displayed across all those various game titles that, still was a struggle for them to wrap their heads around and also to trust in terms of quality activation and scale.
So the beautiful thing is that you are talking about a lot of different formats of this in-game advertising. I'm very focused on the ones that I'm working with, and I'm forgetting about the fact that you are also talking about those different ones. So the thing is, I 100% agree with what you just said about this. But I want to add 50 cents when it comes to the scale and activations at scale, because beautiful example right now, what's going on in-game advertising is what else the makeup company is doing right now. I don't know if you saw this. I'm following their journey and I'm following what they are working on. And when it comes to scale, they are amazing because they have a perfect approach when it comes to at scale advertising in games. And I think what they are doing by creating a new events, new promotional content in those games, new updates and everything like that, it is a very valuable for them as a brand. They bring more characters to the brand and they build more experiences for themselves. More people are coming into their game and they are engaging with the brand even more. They are building a bigger community around this. It's scaling month by month, right? Every couple of months, they are updating their space. They are building this new game. They are connecting this game with their real-world experiences. They are promoting this game on social media. People are talking about this. People are playing this game. I saw a lot of Twitch streamers playing that game. And I think that is something that helps scaling up this in-game advertising activations. And I know this is a makeup example and not a lot of people can relate to that. So another example when it comes to in-game advertising that is great is BMW. In last episode, we were talking about the in-game advertising that BMW is moving forward with. I've noticed that BMW is right now working on something new and they are promoting new things all the time. And they are stuck with a couple of platforms that they are comfortable with. And I've noticed that they are building a lot of value and a lot of brand engagement, and they build the community around this. So those are completely two different industries, right? Like makeup and auto. And I think that when you approach the in-game advertising in a correct way, and I'm going to repeat this millions of times, I know, but if you approach this in a right way, it's going to be very, very valuable for the brand, for you as an agency studio. And I think those brands are going to get so much value from this, and it's going to scale every month or every quarter. And this is going to be a win-win situation for your client or for the clients and for their customers.
To continue on that thread, what you identified in terms of those case studies is you identified that there are other workforce multipliers that can be used to achieve even greater scale and achieve even greater interactivity and engagement of these types of activations. One that you mentioned was Twitch streamers, playing elf activation and continuing to promote it on that platform. So that's the interesting synergy that the gaming industry represents, in that you can contract with third-party, influencer companies that have a particular specialty in gaming and continue to promote that gameplay in a very native environment. In this case, live streaming on Twitch that continues to promote, the availability of this product, and also, to try to engage audiences to use the product a little bit more, to be exposed to that elf branding and those experiences more.
I'm going to give you one more example that I'm going to use a lot today for sure, because I got sucked into this rabbit hole. The HR Block and Minecraft activation that they built recently. So HR Block is a company that you would never think that it could activate in games and build activations in immersive experiences or stuff like that. You would never think that this is HR Block, that they are taking care of your taxes, let's be real. But the agency that came up with an idea to create a activation for Gen Zers and people who are getting into the workforce through their favorite streamers, games, and social media activations. So HR Block created their tournament, Minecraft tournament, that was streamed by I think 50 streamers, and it was a 1 month long activation. They built their own game in Minecraft. They created a very branded and well-designed place. So many streamers played there. They were fighting against each other to win $100,000. And when I was following this and when I started watching what's going on, I had multiple monitors with multiple streamers to see what are the numbers. And on the first day, I counted down, it was 3 million live viewers watching this tournament, or even more, probably more because I couldn't get everyone. But 3 million people watching this tournament on the first day, that was a lot. And it's still HR Block, a company that helps you take care of your taxes. That is the great example here when it comes to using a separate media to promote this in-game advertising, to build the lasting experience, to help people understand that, my brand is valuable, or you should use my company for this, and that.
I'd actually like to skip ahead to the fourth misperception, which is measurement. And I actually don't think this is a misperception. I think that this is right on the money in terms of the difficulty of measuring the value of experiences just like the H&R Block experience that you just talked about. Right? So you've got multiple sources of data that we need to bring together to try to understand the value of this exchange between the creative marketing studio, the platform, and the consumers that were exposed to it. So this is a much more difficult equation compared to activating on a traditional platform like social media as an example, because now you have to port in data from all these different sources. You need some type of understanding as to validity of those data, those data sets. You need to understand the weight of the value of that data set compared to other data sets as well. So it becomes more and more complicated, right? So I can frame it a little bit of a different way. What's the value of somebody having a lean back experience watching someone else play a video game featuring H&R Block on a platform like Twitch as compared to the actual gamer's experience as they're engaging? Those two things have different values. You can take a look at the amount of views or the amount of interactions within those platforms, but you still won't have, in theory, a perfect picture as to what the true value transfer is. And it could very well be that the gamer who, played the H&R Block activation today at the age of, let's say, 16 years old, may choose to purchase H&R Block for their tax purposes when they turn 21. Right? And they may continue to purchase H&R Block when they're, 30 or 45, etc., based off of that memory structure that you created with them originally. So this is just an amplification of the complexities that we also see across the entire media universe. And that's kind of the beauty of media, which is we know that advertising works, we know that entertainment works, and we know that they build memories, they refresh them, and they give new perspectives to audiences as to the value of your services. I think what you're communicating with, metaverse activations or Roblox activations is that there's definitely a value transfer here. It's harder to measure. Does this mean that we shouldn't be activating on these platform experiences? Of course not. We should lean into them and try to use them to their maximum potential. Owi, as a creative, studio and marketing studio that's trying to take an approach in which you're tying the real world activation with the digital world activation, how are you trying to present measurement solutions to your clients?
So when it comes to creating stuff like that and creating measurements for this type of activations, we think about this prior we even start this. Like, what's the goal? What are the measurements that we can provide to the client? Like when we are pitching an idea to a client that, hey, we want to create this, and that, or we think that that would be valuable for you, we also ask, this is what we foresee for this type of activation. Those are the measurements that we can take. For example, how many people bought this? How many people engage with this? How many people engage with this in real life through QR codes, for example? Or how many people engage with this in-game, and what is the CPM based on that? And I think that every agency and every company that is building this, or anyone who builds activations in games for brands, should have their own measurements. I have a friend in Europe who is actually creating Roblox and Minecraft activations, and his agency created their own product that is helping them with measurements and the most important measurements for the client. For example, they built a Roblox experience for a brand that sells shoes. They were checking how many people were buying those shoes, how many people were buying the shoes in games, how many people engage with this, how much money the company made through this activation only, because let's be real, in some platforms like Roblox or Fortnite, you as a brand and you as an agency can make money off this experience for some additional value that you can provide to your customers. And they use those measurements. After each month, they are presenting the measurements to the client. Some people are just using the basic APIs from different platforms, if they use platforms, but those measurements are not always the best. And when you get an API and you build your own product that you can fully control, you can provide even more measurements to the clients to understand that, hey, people engage with that, people engage with this part of the game the most, so we should push this later, or you should push this as a brand later, or this is the thing that people seem to like it, maybe you should do it in real life. So there are different measurements that you can use from the immersive experience, and I think that if you are working with a right partner, you will get the most of it. For example, when Balenciaga created the skiing game that they created just for web that was like super simple, they got so much data from this, and the measurement, like the amount of measurements they got, it's crazy. For example, they measured how many people watched this game, how many memes do they have around the world, how many people really bought this product from the game, how many people were coming back to this game. So when it comes to partnering with the right people are going to give you a perfect measurements for the product and for the activation. And I think that what you said in this paper, some clients or some agencies are terrified of using this because they feel like they don't have enough measurements when it comes to stuff like that. What I can say is that there is so much stuff that can be developed during the activation that no one has it, and it doesn't cost that much money to just measure this one thing for your immersive marketing activation.
I think you bring up a really interesting point, which is a point of, discussion. And if you look back at the perception spectrum, measurement is where the parties are furthest away from each other on that spectrum, right? The buyers think that it's extremely difficult to measure. The sellers think that it's extremely easy to measure. You would fit into that category.
I'm 100% in this category because I saw the measurements.
For sure. But now let's get into reality, right? Which is you can put tags or artifacts within, these various experiences, and you can report the data that you find. But should you be the one to check your own homework? That is the question here. And I think that that's what brand marketers need to understand and grapple with much more so when deciding to make these media buys. You had mentioned earlier in the conversation, Owi, that you felt as, an insider within the gaming industry that the metrics that you receive from some of the major platforms may not be as accurate or, as direct as you would like. And you're an industry insider, right? Whereas a brand marketer might be seeing those same types of metrics and wondering what the validity of those metrics are, right? So that's really, something that the whole industry needs to grapple with, which is, should we be allowed to check our own homework when we've seen time and time again people that don't necessarily turn in, accurate answers, right? So that's just another complexity that is, stopping gaming from achieving its full potential. And then, there's additional complexities with that subpoint, which is the third-party partners that, gaming companies choose to partner with. What is the actual accuracy level, and how do we actually find a benchmark or a true comparison to, to create validity around these measures in themselves? So it's an entire part of, this industry that needs significant work. So let's move forward and let's talk about delivering on full funnel objectives, right? So right now, of course, the sell side believes that their products, especially within the ad tech category, can deliver full funnel objectives, last click attribution, etc. Owi, based off of your experience in the industry, tell me a little bit about your ability and, for your products to deliver full funnel objectives.
So with the delivering full funnel objective is a topic that I really like a lot, because I had an argument with a person that I met on one of the events that, a metaverse or immersive experience or this in-game advertising is just the top of the funnel. Like it brings only an awareness, but nothing else can come up out of this. And a lot of people think like that. And I completely understand why, because a lot of agencies and companies are presenting this as an only awareness thing. And a lot of times it just can be a one-time activation it's just a buzzworthy thing during this time. Like a couple of years ago, everyone was like, oh, metaverse is the future and let's do it only metaverses and everything like that. And this was a perfect thing to for the top of the funnel, because if this brand created this activation in the metaverse, that means that they are very future focused and they want to create even more and they want to focus on the innovation. And I get it. That's how it was for a very long time, that a lot of people were thinking about only a top of a funnel. Right now, when it comes to creating a digital marketing activation, in-game advertising, a immersive marketing activation, or anything that is focused on gaming, it can be, not always, but it can be full funnel activation from top to the final sale. So there's an example with Macy's, for example. Macy's created their own marketing activation in Journey. It's a very beautiful metaverse experience. I feel like this was a huge marketing play for them, but this filled the whole funnel. First of all, awareness. A lot of people were talking about this. A lot of people heard about Journey. If you didn't hear about Journey, but you hear that Macy's created a cool game that looks beautiful, you're gonna join there and you're gonna see this, right? So it touches the top of the funnel. During this game, you could look at the different products from Macy's, and you could see the Macy's values and how Macy's should be perceived by the customers. And you could see the products, you could just have fun. It looked beautiful. You felt like you are in an art museum. But the beautiful thing from this experience, and there are a lot of experiences like that, is that you could check the clothing, check this out, enjoy this beautiful experience, but also buy straight from the experience. Buy the product and order this to your house. So we have the whole funnel here, from just a buzzworthy engagement here to people engaging with this platform, talking about this and seeing what's going on, and if this is even worth my time, to purchasing their clothing to their homes. And this is a experience that I think it's really worth talking about, because it was I think 2 months only experience. A lot of people joined this experience. A lot of people played it. A lot of people were talking about it. A lot of people were in awe when they saw what the hell was going on, how web-based experience can be that beautiful. And there are a lot of different examples when it comes to using the whole funnel, from the awareness to final sale. But it doesn't always have to be in the platform only or in this game only.
I think that Macy's activation that you just spoke about is an incredible full funnel opportunity. And let's take a step back and, recalibrate basically. As I mentioned in episode 1, the gaming world is our world, just digitized, similar to the internet. But now we have a full 3D experience that's immersive. So the same principles and marketing tactics that we would like to achieve in the real world can be augmented within these experiences. So it makes a lot of sense. And I have to agree with you, Owi, that I do think that the gaming opportunity is a full funnel experience. We just need to parse out the different components of the gaming world to understand where they fit within this, full funnel bucket, basically, and how we can augment them in their current states to achieve even further activation down the full funnel, right? So that example with Macy's is great. You could take this even further and provide audiences with the opportunity to, buy things like skins to achieve that product in the physical world as well as the digital world, and continue to, create this virtuous marketing cycle within gaming as well. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunities. And if we can perceive gaming as literally an augmented version of our physical reality, then there's a limitless potential with gaming.
So the other brand that I think that is a little bit different when it comes to this objective and this full funnel objective, right? Delivering on that, is the activation that I was talking about, and I'm talking about this very often, is the activation that Chipotle built. I love this example because in our industry, it really created a lot of buzz, and a lot of people were very interested in what's going on thanks to this. So with the Chipotle, for example, there was a top of a funnel that people were like, oh my gosh, you can build burritos in Roblox for Chipotle? What is going on? And a lot of people were talking about this. It went viral around the US. Everyone was playing this. Everyone had so much fun. A lot of people were talking about this. There were subreddits, tweets, and a lot of memes on social media. But also, it helped Chipotle with their sales, and a lot of people during this first week when the activation started, a lot of people ordered Chipotle through any delivering apps, which is super cool because this is the full funnel objective that we're talking about here. From the awareness to final sale, and also building a community of people who are really interested in talking about this particular topic. So I'm happy that you are agreeing with me when it comes to this now, because I thought that you're going to be the person who is going to disagree with me.
Let's finish on the fifth core pillar of these 5 misperceptions that we talked about today, which is brand safety and receptivity. So that's really 2 different components here that we had to bunch together for this particular, research. Brand safety is a critical topic that, a lot of the media industry is grappling with. And, brand marketers basically want to understand if the context of gaming is suitable to align their brand adjacent to or to integrate their brand within. So much more research needs to take place to prove the actual impacts of brand safety as a core concept. But in terms of general, acceptance in the industry, a lot of marketers simply would like to stay away from contexts that they perceive as not the right fit for their brand ethos. So this may diminish the opportunity for the gaming industry as a whole in terms of games that, have some type of component of violence or some type of components of sex or, other perceived bad thing. But the main question here that I think that marketers should be grappling with is if the audience has gone to this environment to achieve this type of, use case or gameplay type. So brand safety or brand suitability, these terms seem to be interchangeable across the industry, is a hot topic across, pretty much every form of media. So advertisers need to grapple with this concept, but they also need some foundational understanding as to whether or not these things actually exist and impact audiences. And when I say that, I mean, what research do they have to prove that unsafe environments negatively impact the perception of brands? And they should actually prove that and categorize that at their brand level. And one of the things that, they should grapple with or consider grappling with within gaming is basically the gamer use case, right? If an audience member came to this environment to experience this type of gameplay, they are here for perhaps what you think is an unsuitable experience, but they're here nonetheless. So the question is, what is the threshold for you to agree to advertise adjacent to? Or do you decide not to activate within these environments because you perceive that they might be harmful to your brand, or you simply don't want to, keep company with these types of experiences? So that's really brand safety. And there's a lot of, things that need to be researched within this particular category for brands. And the second point is receptivity. And we use this term to basically describe this interesting relationship with gamers. It's a fine line and a balancing act between creating activations that are actually enjoyable for gamers and don't disrupt their gameplay, and oversaturating their experience with advertising. So this happens at the ad format level, this happens at the frequency level, etc., and it happens across all these different devices and platform experiences that we're talking about. So we need to understand authentic experiences, and how do we define and measure what authenticity actually is for the gaming community?
I don't have much to say about this topic, actually, and I don't want to come up with some thoughts or some things that I heard, but because I've never heard about anything, and I've never even thought about it, actually, because when it comes to brand safety, for example, I think about the brands first and their customers, but I understand that there is always some risk when it comes to different platforms and games. And I don't have much thoughts when it comes to brand safety or receptivity. But the thing is, some things are worth the risk. And I know that being in a GTA for some brands isn't the best idea, but there are some brands that are so cool, they should be engaging with this type of content.
I'd like to share a little bit about a case study that MediaScience conducted with Warner Brothers Discovery, in which we measured brand suitability within premium content. And within this experiment, we exposed audiences to different types of what might be perceived as unsuitable content, various types of content that featured sex, drugs, alcohol, and violence. And what we found from this research is that brand suitability needs, in some ways, a new look. We need to have a little bit deeper research to truly understand what's happening to audiences when they're exposed to quote-unquote unsuitable content. What we found is that rather than negatively impacting advertisements, we found that the context transference effect that is achieved through unsuitable content is actually akin to the same type of context transference effect as sports, which is excitation transference. So the audience member misattributes the excitement that they feel from the context as they go into the ad break to the advertiser. So it actually continues to drive performance for ads, even when placed adjacent to unsuitable content. And we saw this effect even more so impactful to male audience members. And considering that a significant portion of gamers are male, it may be interesting to take a look at this and conduct some very deep research to determine what the actual impact to advertisers are when adjacent to quote-unquote unsuitable content within gaming.
So I want to wrap up this episode with saying that this was one of the most important episodes when it comes to this series. People are talking about a lot of creative stuff and buzzworthy stuff. Yes, it is very important, but we talked about the value and we talked about the data. And I think that when it comes to data and the creatives, they should work together. That's why great creatives, great strategy, and great research are very, very important. If you want to learn more about the value of this in-game advertising, reach out to us to learn more.